everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of the live stream. Very special because here we are, and you're here. That's what makes it special. I am your Heavenly Father, Kevin Williams, and we yell and chat truth to power. So let's get right to it. This is Macaroni. The United States just passed 200,000 officially dead from coronavirus, including people with underlying conditions or not underlying conditions. This means that now roughly 12,000 people, totally perfectly healthy people with no underlying conditions, are dead, which matches the H1N1 or the N1H1. It doesn't matter how you say it, flu. Hi, Danielle. Hey, 06077518675449. Hey, Kim. Kim was first. Allison, welcome. Everybody else who's in here, good to see you. If you want to chat, you can do that on whatever platform you're on. A lot of people watch it up on the TV. If they've got a smart TV, they chat on their phone. That's one way to do it. You can use your computer. Or if you really want to chat and be the fastest chat, lately it's been YouTube. So youtube.com/KevinlyFather. Don't forget to like us on YouTube, and let's go from here. This is Kaylee Macaroni. I haven't watched this yet, but let's enjoy together.
President of the United States to exercise his constitutional duty. Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution clearly states that the president, quote, shall nominate, end quote, justices of the Supreme Court when a vacancy occurs.
That is actually wrong. Right off the bat, that is incorrect. It does not say when a vacancy occurs. That's just made up. They don't outline it. Yes, you can assume it. And yeah, I think the president should nominate a Supreme Court justice. That should always be done. Unfortunately, the Senate set the rules last time that they should not be sent forth. So right off the bat, there's one lie. I need a buzzer. Here. This is the truth. And the old broken bell is a lie. Still sounds pretty good, actually. So,
No matter the time, no matter the politics of the day, the president is the president. There's nothing in the Constitution that says the president stops being the president in an election year. The president has already...
Well, I mean, if he's impeached and convicted, then yes, there is.
Already appointed two strong conservative justices to the Supreme Court, justices who will interpret the Constitution as written. Now, he will nominate a third. As Senator Ted Cruz reminds us, we're one vote away from seeing our religious liberty votes stripped away, from our free speech stripped away, from our Second Amendment being stripped away. Just one.
That is incorrect. You can't overturn an amendment in the Supreme Court because it's in the Constitution. The Supreme Court decides what's constitutional, what's not constitutional. The Second Amendment is in the Constitution. You can't overturn it. You have to have a constitutional amendment to overturn the amendment, which has happened before, but it takes 2/3 of the states, not Biden, not the president.
Vote. Contrast the president's solemn constitutional duty with Democrats' search and destroy politics. Nancy Pelosi has vowed to attack the president with, quote, arrows. Speaker Pelosi will not rule...
That's a metaphor. It's okay. Nancy Pelosi's not actually an archer. We haven't reached the Hunger Games yet. And if we do, I've got dibs on District 13. Right here, that's mine. Pick your district, people. Oh, Kim, you are totally District 3.
Impeaching this president for doing his job, for fulfilling his constitutional obligation. AOC said that impeachment is an option, quote, on the table.
Dennis, I just think it's unfair to call her stupid. I mean, when it comes right down to it, we don't actually have any evidence that she's, stupid. I think it's unfair.
Absolutely. This president will always put America first. He will always protect American citizens. We will not see diseases like the coronavirus come here.
Okay, she might be a little bit stupid. Just a hair. Man, I had to milk that out to get to that, Dennis. I couldn't find it. Pick a district. They're all the same.
While Chuck Schumer stood by...
Sure. There's nothing in the Constitution that says how many Supreme Court justices there have to be. So you could have 3. You could have... theoretically, you have an odd number so that you don't end up with a lot of ties. The vast majority of Supreme Court votes are 9-0 anyway. By the time it gets to the Supreme Court, they look at it and say, well, a lower court really screwed up on this. And if there is a tie, it's not a big deal, and it's happened many times. It just goes back to the ruling of the lower court. So say that a state court, Florida, says, Bush won the election. If there's a 4-4 tie, that just goes right back to the lower court, and then Bush wins the election. So that is they really shouldn't be. I'm not going to say anything. I should not. The Republicans right now could be screwing themselves. I mean, really screwing themselves. Let's move on.
Nodding approvingly. The plan of House Democrats is so rabidly radical that even Democrat Senator Tim Kaine has rebuked the
radically radical. She has all the best words.
Idea, calling the idea of using impeachment to delay a Supreme Court vote, quote, foolish. Some Democrats already have a backup plan if they don't get their way on this nomination.
Yeah.
Congressman Joe Kennedy said if he holds a vote in 2020, we pack the court in 2021.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Senator Ed Markey went further. No Supreme Court vacancies filled in an election year, he said. If he violates it when Democrats control the Senate in the next Congress, we must abolish the filibuster and expand the Supreme Court.
They were going to do that anyway.
Senator, the president is elected to a
abolish the filibuster, not expand the Supreme Court. That wasn't part of the plan, but they can.
4-year term.
Oh yeah, let me finish. Sorry. So I didn't want to get sidetracked there. But yeah, so if a president wants, they could nominate 28 people to the Supreme Court. And if the Senate approves them all, then they all go on the Supreme Court. What is ridiculous, what the Constitution does say is that the Senate must advise and consent. So now that the Republicans have literally said, this is what's going to happen, we are going to have, I can find it because I got it yesterday, Lindsey Graham yesterday, who I have in a file called Lady G, just because I'm petty, he said this yesterday.
Audience would fill in the gap that I'm facing, but we're going to have a process that you'll be proud of. The nominee is going to be supported by every Republican in the Judiciary Committee, and we've got the votes to confirm the justice on the floor of the Senate before the election, and that's what's coming.
They've got the votes to confirm the judge in the Senate before we even know who the nominee is. I'm sorry, but that's not advise. You can't advise the president of whether or not this is a good person to have a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court, to be the ultimate judge of whether something is constitutional or not constitutional, without even knowing who the person is. You want to talk about constitutionalists, you want to talk about strict interpretation. It's just so hypocritical. But as they pointed out many times, this situation is completely different than when Obama was trying to get Merrick Garland in. And here's why. Back then, the Senate, the Republican Senate, didn't want to do it. And now they do want to do it. Completely different. Completely different, libtards. Why you can't see that is beyond me.
You cannot unilaterally reduce it to 3 years. The president is the president. Democrats cannot win their argument on the merits. They cannot win on
the merits. On the merits is what she was trying to say.
Precedent, so they must search and destroy. Don Lemon said the quiet part out loud last night. He said this: we're going to have to blow up the entire system if the president does his job as outlined in the Constitution.
He did not say if the president does his job as outlined in the Constitution. He said we're going to have to blow up the whole system, which, again, was a metaphor.
That's the difference between Republicans and Democrats. We fight to protect the system. We fight to protect the Constitution.
Oh, hold on. Christopher Ryan didn't get notification of us being live. Stephanie, that was your job. I told you to go knock on his door, make sure he was awake as soon as the thing started. God, I just can't depend on you, Stephanie.
When Democrats say outright, we are going to blow up the entire system because we do not get our way.
Okay, first off, you can't blow up a system. That's not a thing. It's just an expression.
This president will proceed undaunted by Democrat threats. President Trump will fulfill his duty. President Trump will appoint the next Supreme Court justice. President Trump will protect religious liberty. President Trump will protect our freedom of speech. President Trump will protect our Second Amendment. Under this president, our rights will...
We'll protect our freedom of speech unless the Democrats say something. Then, oh boy, all bets are off.
...will be upheld, our
I can never forgive
Constitution safeguarded, and this president will fill that...
By the way, if you have not seen something got nominated for a couple of Oscars a couple of years back, Can You Ever Forgive Me? It with Melissa McCarthy. It is brilliant. A couple of amazing performances in it. Complete sidetrack. Let's get back to it.
Seat. And with that, I'll take questions. Jim.
Kayleigh, as you know, the country has hit 200,000 deaths from the coronavirus. What do you say to Americans who are outraged over this and blame this administration for so many lives lost in this country?
Well, as you've heard several doctors in the task force note from this podium, we are looking at the prospect of 2 million people potentially perishing from the coronavirus in this country. We grieve when even one life is lost, but the fact that we have that we have come nowhere near that number is a testament to this president taking immediate action, to shutting down travel from China when the other party, Democrats, were saying that was xenophobic, for shutting down travel for Europe, for developing landmark therapeutics that are working like remdesivir.
Remdesivir already existed.
And when you look at the fact that excess mortality, Europe has experienced a 28% higher excess mortality rate than the United States. It's a testament to the hard...
That is a bogus statistic, and the White House will not provide any evidence of that. No one's really sure what they're talking about, but we think they're talking about the CFR. Yeah, it's... Anyway, I'm moving on.
Hard work done by the task force and this president.
And if you don't mind, if I could follow up, last night the president...
Sorry, they're not talking about the CFR. We got over that, but no, they're using bogus stats. Because they're talking about excess mortality, but if you throw in all the countries of Europe, especially if you throw in the European part of Russia, you're talking about over 700 million people. So yeah, they're supposed to have excess mortality. Of course they have excess mortality. They've got twice the number of people of our country. So to only have 30% excess mortality, when you compare it per capita, the U.S. has way more excess mortality per person. That's what they did.
The president said at one of his rallies about the virus, and I think he was talking about younger Americans, he said it affects virtually nobody. By the way, open your schools, everybody open your schools. But he said to Bob Woodward, it's not just older people, it's young people too. At 200,000 deaths, shouldn't the president be telling people the truth about this virus at his rallies?
The president is telling people the truth, and you're right, Jim, that he was talking about...
He's saying that it affects virtually nobody and that it doesn't affect young people. He's not telling the truth.
Jim, but you're, again, taking the president out of context. I have his full quote here, and you're right that he was referring to young people. He said this...
Well, no, I'm not taking it out of context. If I said he was talking about younger people, then I'm not taking it out of context.
You are taking it out of context because you're making an assertion that he's not giving...
He's literally saying, he's giving it context by saying, I think he was talking about young people. That's context.
Critical information when in fact he is, and I will underscore exactly what he said, and he said...
No, there's no context to critical information.
This, in some states, thousands of people, and they've had nobody young, below the age of 18, like nobody. They have a strong immune...
That's not true. Every state has had at least one child die.
System. That is factually true.
Okay, maybe not every state. What I'm saying is New Jersey, the one that he always quotes from Governor Murphy, actually did have a kid die, and more kids are dying all the time.
You can go to the American Academy of Pediatrics website, the Children's Hospital Association, and they list out a number of states that have had zero pediatric deaths.
The coronavirus and then spread it to older people.
And as
But the president didn't say in some states they actually haven't had any pediatric deaths. He did not say that. He said virtually no one.
Since the very beginning. And for the president of the United States at 200,000 deaths to go out to his rallies and say something like it virtually affects nobody and that in some states it's not affecting young people, that is glossing over the fact and really diminishing the fact that young people can catch this virus and spread it to older people. Younger people can also be sickened and killed by this virus.
Jim, do you have the quote there with you?
I have the quote here, yes.
Yes, it is exactly as I just read it to you, that in several states, they have had zero.
He never says several states. That's not part of the quote. That is not part of the quote at all. I have it. Here we go.
Pediatric deaths. I have the entire list here: Arkansas, Delaware, District of Columbia, Hawaii,
Iowa.
Idaho, Kansas, and the list goes on. And as you may not know, Jim, the COVID has a 0.01% mortality rate for people under the age of 18. So
Right. We've talked about that before, and that's about 400 kids now.
it is not a disease that affects young people in the same way as older people, which is the exact point the president was making last night. Yes.
One person, Kaylee, who does believe that the president has...
Hold on. I'll play that quote for you so you know. And I'll play it in the context that I put it in last night. Give me a second. And that's from this morning. Here we go. Okay, and I'll bring this over. Here we go, kids. This is what we do if you're joining us for the first time, by the way. We'll play the stuff and put things into context for you. A lot of times they'll be talking about stuff that you have no idea because you have a life. You don't have time to watch all this kind of crap. And either I watch it or you share it with me, which I appreciate. I get sent stuff all the time from my people. We call them the Kevinly family. And I appreciate it when I get this stuff. Here's a little bit of context for what they're talking about right now. This is a quote from the president when he was talking to Bob Woodward in March, and then a quote from last night that he talks about so we can see it in context, and then another quote from the president. Here we are.
Now it's turning out it's not just old people, Bob. Just today and yesterday, some startling facts came out. It's not just older young people, to plenty of young people.
So,
in some states, thousands of people, nobody young, below the age of 18, like nobody. They have a strong immune system. Who knows? You take your hat off to the young because they have a hell of an immune system, but it affects virtually nobody. It's an amazing thing. By the way, open your schools. Everybody, open your schools.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
It affects. Stop. It affects virtually nobody. Not true. Not true. You don't have to die for it to affect you. Thousands of children are having long-term side effects of this drugs, or I should just say, not drugs, effects of this disease, long-term effects, including many having up to 1,000 having the effects of Kawasaki syndrome, a similar disease to Kawasaki syndrome, which is not something that you want. In short, here we go.
The constitutional authority to make a nomination for the Supreme Court, and that the Senate has the constitutional obligation to provide advice and consent, is Utah Senator Mitt Romney. In the course of the last 3.5 years, the president and Romney have often found themselves at odds, have said unkind, if not intemperate things about each other. How is the president feeling about Mitt Romney today?
I haven't spoken to him about Senator Romney, but Senator Romney is recognized.
Come on, John. Let's not devolve into the palace intrigue. We have real things going on right now. Usually I'm a big fan of John, but that was just a weak question. I do not give a fuck what Trump feels about Mitt Romney at this particular point in time, because that'll change when the wind blows.
What any of us who take a clear-eyed look at precedent recognize that the precedent is on our side here. 29 times has there been an appointment during an election year, 29 times. And when you break down those numbers, 19 times when those nominations were made, the Senate and the president were of the same party. 17 of those 19 times, that nominee went on to be confirmed. The 10 times when it was a difference in party between Republicans and Democrats in the Senate and the presidency, only 2 went on to be confirmed. So precedent is on our side. But Democrats.
But okay, so precedent. Sometimes they go on to be confirmed. You give them a hearing. You give them a vote. That's the precedent. We have the precedent. Whether it's 2 or 3, she's forgetting about Kennedy, but whether it's 2 or 3, that stat is true if it's Democrat versus anyway. That's precedent. 30% of the time, but you give them a vote, and sometimes do they get through? Yes. You don't just say like, oh no, we're not going to give them a vote because we don't feel like it. So yeah, they changed the rules back in 2016. And just like Harry Reid changed the rules on how many votes it takes to nominate or to approve a judge, and those were the rules moving forward, you can't just change the rules when it affects you and then change it right back when you want it your way. That's not how it works. But guess what? That's how it works.
Are trying to have it both ways here. And I would cite Dan McLaughlin at National Review, who said this, and he's exactly right. Choosing not to fill a vacancy would be a historically unprecedented act of unilateral disarmament.
No, it would not. Same thing happened. Yes, there were different parties, but they chose not to fill a vacancy for 11 months.
So let me just follow up on that if I could. So timing now is the next issue. The president will have 37 or 38 days from the time he makes the announcement to the last time that he could have a vote before the election. Past years, John Paul Stevens was nominated and confirmed in 19 days. Chief Justice John Roberts, 24. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor in 33. Times were different back then than they are now. Can you do it in 37 days?
We certainly believe we can. You've heard very optimistic words from Senator Graham.
And how will you do it?
Well, we will go about this.
Yeah, they can do it. Why is this even a question?
The way we always have, by putting forward a Constitution-abiding textualist, originalist that we believe the American people will appreciate, and we believe will get through the approval process, the nomination and confirmation process, I should say, quite quickly. Yes, Kevin.
Two quick questions.
Yes.
On the 200,000 deaths, will the president recognize that publicly today at his speech or on Twitter?
Will he be flying the flags at half-staff again? Because they're probably already still flying for Ruth Bader Ginsburg at this point.
Is this something that he would like to express remorse over, or sympathy to people who have lost?
The president throughout this pandemic has done just that. He has said before that it keeps him up at night thinking of even one life lost. This president has taken this incredibly seriously, and what he's done is he's worked harder each and every day. He works hard, puts his head down, and I think that's very evident in the administration's historic response, the largest mobilization of the private sector since World War II, the fact that we got working therapeutics delivered to the American people, the fact that a vaccine, frankly, this will be.
When you have 15 people, and the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero, that's a pretty good job we've done.
Yep. Go on. You were saying?
The fastest pace for a vaccine for a novel pathogen in history as we seek to reach that goal by the end of the year. That's what the president does. He takes this seriously. And the fact that you've seen the fatality rate that has fallen 85% since April, and the fact that only 1.5% of emergency room visits are now people sick with COVID is a real testament to the hard work done by the task force and President Trump.
No, we still have 40,000 new cases a day. 40,000 new cases a day. Deaths and cases are on the way up again. We just rounded a corner, but right into another wall.
Could you speak a bit about why the president prefers to have the confirmation vote before the election? How does he think this is going to help Cory Gardner and Joni Ernst and Republicans keep the majority in the Senate?
Well, the president would like to see a confirmation process that is fair. I think one of the low points for this process was the Kavanaugh hearings and what Democrats did there, making baseless allegations against Justice Kavanaugh, someone respected.
They had bases. There were witnesses. That's your base.
Prior to President Trump appointing him by everyone, and Democrats really dragged his name through the mud. What happened there was a travesty. And the president wants to see a fair confirmation process, and he wants to see one that does not look like what happened to Kavanaugh. That was a real low point for Democrats.
Democratic stumbles in the Kavanaugh confirmation process will help Republicans? Repeated?
He thinks, look, Democrats really showed them at themselves at the lowest point in that confirmation process. I think the American people saw Democrats for the partisan games that they'd play, and I think the American people are looking now and seeing Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer talking about impeachment for executing your power in Article 2, Section 2. It's really inane and outlandish, the things they're suggesting, and once again, they seem to be doubling down on their Kavanaugh approach. Didn't work out too well with Justice Kavanaugh, won't work out too well this time in an election year. Yes.
Kayleigh, one on COVID, one on the court. First on COVID, if I can. The president recently gave himself an A+ for his handling of COVID, but a D for his PR. What would good PR look like when 200,000 Americans are dead?
What the president was saying is that he wants to make sure that we get good information to the American people. That's something that I think we've done. And this president...
He's provided information at times that was not true. He said he was downplaying it, so purposefully he was providing information at times that was not fully true.
That's absolutely inaccurate.
He said that. He did say that. We just listened to that. He said that.
The president never downplayed critical health information. The president never downplayed our COVID.
He said it. We have it on tape. We just listened to it.
COVID response, and you can just see that by the historic effort that we've put forward. And I would also point you to Dr. Fauci, who said, I don't recall anything different in our discussions with the president.
Who said, it may have happened, I may not have heard it.
And that he said things quite similarly in public, and he was asked directly by none other than John Roberts, did you ever get the sense that he was or wasn't playing this down? No, I didn't, and that's an assertion echoed by the vice president. Our response, when you look, that 100 million tests that we've exceeded, the vaccine on record pace, the therapeutics, the fact that we've brought fatality down by 85%. This was a novel pathogen that came in for which there were no tests and there were no identified therapeutics, but they were identified very quickly.
No, our testing was terrible. We screwed up the testing. That's why we are where we are. That's why, with the virus arriving the same day between us and South Korea, we have 200,000 deaths and they have 366. That's why. Because we screwed up the testing in February. And Trump downplayed it, and nobody worried about it. We could have just said, hey, World Health Organization, we need your tests. We really need to test so we can see what's going on here. Oh, guess what? The virus came over from Europe. Now it's in New York. Now 60,000 people are going to die because we didn't test, contain, and trace. That's why it wasn't handled right at the very beginning. And that's why we are where we are today. How do we know that? Because South Korea did it properly. And they have 366 deaths. It's just math.
And also with regard to the vaccine, when you look at the notion that we are manufacturing this at commercial levels, which I was told by Dr. Salawi that normally takes years to do, and we're already producing, the goal is 100 million doses by the end of the year. That's a testament to this president and his response.
Okay, none of those have been used yet. We don't have a virus yet. I asked you guys to produce a virus. Yeah, of course, a vaccine. Yeah. Did I just say virus for vaccine? They're two Vir words. One of them is a super V, and that's why it's my favorite. Yeah, exactly. No true, Kayleigh.
None of these vaccines are effective. What is Plan B for the White House?
Look, you're asking a hypothetical. We have 6 vaccines. We have 6 American.
The vaccine is a hypothetical at this point. You just were talking about hypotheticals, Kayleigh.
Vaccines that we've identified, 3 of them in phase 3 clinical trial. There's also one. We're getting there, and by the end of the year is the goal. And
so
when you say,
approved, what will we do if they're not approved? We all hope for good news, but what?
Mark, I don't have to know anything about hot pockets. We can look at the data. We have actual data. We know that South Korea, by March 12th, had tested 220,000 people in South Korea, with 1/6 the population of the United States. 220,000 people. Take a guess at how many the United States had tested by March 12th. Take a guess.
If they're not approved, what will the White House
we have 6 candidates. We are a strong belief that we will identify one, hopefully more.
RKR says if Trump wins in 2020, you will wash your hair. That is correct. And if he loses in 2020, I will wash my hair. Anyway.
Than one working vaccine by the end of the year, producing them in advance. We already have a distribution plan. And
All hypothetical.
When you compare this, I think context matters. Ebola taking 14 months to get to phase 3 clinical trial. We already have 2 candidates in phase 3 clinical trial. Ebola took 3 years to get to completion. We will have done this in under a year, the fastest rate for a novel pathogen.
That's really cool. Hey, how many people died in the United States from Ebola? Two people died from Ebola in the United States. And Trump wanted Obama to resign because of 2 people. He's literally done 100,000, 2,000, 20. Yeah. It just, I was saying it. My brain said it's 100,000 times more. And then my brain said, no, that can't be. It can't be 100,000. Yeah. Trump's dealing with the coronavirus is literally 100,000 times worse than Obama's dealing with Ebola. I almost said Obama. And Trump wanted Obama to resign. But Trump gives himself an A+ for this.
In history. Justin.
Just really quick follow-up on the court. The president did retweet today a segment from Rush Limbaugh where Limbaugh suggested, quote, it would be great if Republicans skipped committee hearings on this pick altogether. Does the president want Republicans to skip committee hearings? They're a co-equal branch of government. Why is he directing them to do anything?
The president is a fan of Rush Limbaugh, appreciates his commentary, and therefore retweet.
Fine, do it. Get it in. Before the election, please, if there's anybody in the Democratic Party who's in charge, call me. Call me. Them doing this could set things up for a presidential win. So I can't believe I haven't seen anyone talking about this yet. All the other scenarios where things could happen, I've seen those mentioned now, but I haven't heard anyone talking about moving on.
It, but we're working with the Senate right now on that confirmation process, and Senator Graham has said it looks like it will be on a 3-day timeline.
So
Justin.
He wants the committee to go forward.
Justin.
Thanks, Kelly. One on the SCOTUS and then one on the stimulus. Can you confirm that the president's planning to meet with Judge Lagoa in Florida while he is down there this week? And he said yesterday that he had spoken to some candidates beforehand. I know Judge Barrett was in here yesterday, but I was wondering if you could talk about any of the others that he may have already had contact with.
Yeah, I won't get into his private meetings. You will find out which Constitution-abiding textualist and originalist he is appointing on Saturday.
And then on the stimulus, it's been kind of a rocky couple days on Wall Street. I think there's concern that the Supreme Court fight may sort of kill the last gasps of getting a stimulus bill done before the election. Does the White House agree that that's probably not going to happen until after the election, if at all? Or if you are still hopeful, the president had said when the time is right, he'd be willing to reach out to Speaker Pelosi. It seems like we're getting down into the last legislative days before the election. Is the time now right?
Yeah, we've wanted to see a Phase 4 relief bill get to the American people. It's why the Chief of Staff and Secretary Mnuchin have been in negotiations. Unfortunately, though, they've been in negotiations with a fundamentally unserious partisan named Speaker Pelosi, who, when we would exceed what...
Speaker of the House, highest-ranking female in power in the history of the United States, fundamentally unserious.
What she asked for was school funding, let's say.
Do we have to be this way? If Biden gets elected, can we just go back to being decent human beings? Can we do that? Can we all just agree on that? I'm going to make a yard sign. Biden, just be a decent human being.
She then would reject the money that was in excess of what she had previously asked for. Democrats, I think, showed what they were about when they filibustered a bill that would have provided $300 a week to the American people through December 27th. They filibustered that, I believe, last week. So at this point, the onus is really on Speaker Pelosi. We encourage her to send one-off bills, perhaps airline funding or other elements that we could work through the process to get to the American people. It's always been this president's priority to do that.
So you don't see a kind of big stimulus bill, but you might see one-off bills before election.
Yeah, the onus is on Nancy Pelosi. We've come up in our number to $1.5 trillion, so it's possible should she become serious in these negotiations. But at this point, if she doesn't want to deliver relief to the American people to that degree, then she can.
Here's the thing about the American people. Every one of them lives in a locality. every one of them lives in, for those in the United States, every one of them lives in a state. Those localities and those states are having huge budget nightmares. For example, I have a buddy, his job is to put up and maintain lights at fields, at school fields, football games, etc., or even just play fields, just making sure everything is lit properly, or for libraries or whatever. And that's part of his job. He's an electrical engineer. He's got work for about 6 months. But after 6 months, because this is all planned well in advance, nothing's coming in. Because the state, nobody has any money right now. And so they're going to cut a bunch of programs. So you're going to lose. My buddy's an electrical engineer. I have no idea how much he makes, but it's probably a pretty good deal. And then that erodes your tax base. Now you've got to put him on unemployment. And that erodes, and he's not spending money because now he's on unemployment. My buddy will happen over and over and over and over again through communities throughout the country. And if we don't give money to the cities and to the states, the police are going to be defunded. Cities and counties will have to cut the sheriffs and the cops, and we will be defunding the police. And that is exactly what the Republicans are doing right now. Exactly. Where do you cut? You cut essential services. Because, yeah, they're essential, but we just don't have the money for it. And why? Well, because we got to bail out the airlines. You know who needs help is the cruise ships.
One-off some bills that we would look at and be...
I said in the United States, Paul. You're absolutely correct. Puerto Rico, D.C. Trump just gave a bunch of money to Puerto Rico, so I'm glad you brought that up. Mission accomplished. I managed to hit the camera. I've had these waiting here for 4 days. Honestly, this is tougher than it looks. All right, that's enough of that. Thank you, Paul.
Happy to move forward with, because the priority has always been getting money to the American people, which is why the president has had those EOs on evictions and unemployment insurance and student.
The important part is I'm having fun.
Loans and evictions. Yes.
The first presidential debate is a week from today. How do you expect the Supreme Court issue to impact that debate?
Yeah, so, a lot of that is for the campaign with regards to the debate, so I'd have to refer you there. But I think the American people are going to get a very clear-eyed look, as they have with the previous two nominees we've made, of what this president stands for, that he wants a judge.
Marcy points out that Hawaii would be happy to absorb Guam. Speaking of absorption, here you go, Hawaii. Mission accomplished.
Who will protect our fundamental rights, our essential liberties, who looks at the Constitution as written, not trying to fancifully interpret that document, who looks at the plain meaning of statutes and implements that and rules in a way that a true textual...
All these constitutionalists. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Marbury versus Madison. If the Constitution is so clear and doesn't need to be interpreted, the Supreme Court doesn't need to exist. That's their whole goddamn raison d'etre. Name that movie.
Would. This is a president who will protect the Second Amendment, who will protect the First Amendment, and these fundamental rights are at stake. Should another party have their way with the judiciary, but this president will continue to appoint justices in the mold of Gorsuch and of Justice Kavanaugh.
Separately, the Democrats are threatening to add justices to the Supreme Court, as you mentioned. Does that concern you at all as you go about this process?
Yeah, that's it's unfortunately another example of trying to blow up the system. If you don't.
I just want to fact check Lizzie here. RGB will be the first woman to lie in state. That is incorrect. Kaylee has been lying in the state. Oh, state in lions. I see. It's not states. Sometimes
get your way, Democrats will blow up the system. They will change the system. They will trample on the Constitution. And, I would point them to the words of Justice Ginsburg, who called court packing a bad idea. She called it partisan. She said 9 seems to be a good number. I think packing the court was a bad idea when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt tried it, and I'm not in favor of all of that. Yes. Anita.
She did say
I had a question on the virus, but I wanted just to follow up on Justin. He asked about the speaker. Has the president called the speaker about the recovery bill, and why not if he wants to get this done? Is he calling other lawmakers as well?
I'm not aware of any conversation that they've had. There have been communications through the Chief of Staff, through the Secretary of Treasury, but until Speaker Pelosi becomes serious in her negotiating, instead of she's engaging in political drama, we're really at a stalemate. So it's
engaging in political drama, says the woman who just called the Speaker of the House unserious, fundamentally unserious. But as long as you're not engaging in political drama, I think we're good. I think we're probably covered there.
Really, the ball is in her court to become serious in these negotiations.
It would carry more weight if the president called than Mark Meadows, correct?
They've been negotiating, and when we believe the speaker is in a serious spot, we can move forward with other conversations. But at this point, when you ask for a certain amount of school funding, we exceed that, and then you reject the excess for school funding. It just really shows where her mindset's at.
And my question on the virus was that some polls are showing that a majority of Americans don't trust what the president is saying on the virus vaccine. And I wondered, you all keep talking about the vaccine possibly coming out. How are you going to get people to believe that the vaccine is safe and that people should go get it when it does come out? What is the process going to be looking like?
Yeah, so I think first I want to point out that several of the doctors have been on the record and have said that this vaccine is going through the same rigorous process it should. As Dr. Hannes said, I've repeatedly said that all FDA decisions have been and will continue to be based solely on good science and data. As Dr. Fauci said, certainly there are no corners.
I can ask. Green Room, Allison is asking if you can see her.
Being cut here, and several others like Secretary Azar have been on the record on this. So the members of the task force have all said this is going through the rigorous FDA process, and it will be a good, safe, and effective vaccine. Yes.
Just following up to Anita's question on the vaccine, how soon would the president feel comfortable taking a vaccine himself, and would he support a non-American vaccine, perhaps even from China or Russia?
So first I would say this, that the president has been on the record saying, I'm happy to be the first person to take the vaccine or the last person, whatever is best for the American people. He believes it'll be a safe and effective vaccine and one he would certainly be open to taking. And he said this, I'm going to really say something that is not like me. I don't care. I just want to get a vaccine that works. I really don't care if it's another country. I'll take my hat off to them. But currently I think the other vaccine in phase 3 clinical trial is the one in Oxford. Yes.
Is it time for an OAN question?
Clarify on the Mitt Romney development. With Senator Romney's announcement, does the president think he actually has a bulletproof group of Republicans who will vote no matter what, even before the nominee is named? Or does he fear some defections after that nominee is named and the confirmation hearings begin?
No, he thinks his nominee is going to be someone with a stellar track record, someone who, as I've mentioned, several of the qualities, will be a textualist, who will be an originalist, and someone who we believe Republicans will really rally around. And Senator Graham said that he believes that he'll have the votes, and we'll leave it to the senators at this point. But this will be a nominee that will really, I think, unify Republicans.
Well, the president's been a pretty good nose counter. Does he think he has 51?
I missed the first part of what you said.
The president has been a pretty good nose counter. Does he think he has 51?
Yeah, I think at this point he's just trying to select the nominee. I haven't spoken to him about the vote count, but we believe that Republicans will remain unified, and we believe that this nominee.
The president has not been a pretty good nose counter. That's not. No. Remember this? Remember this at 2 a.m.?
Will get across the finish line. Yes.
The president is giving a healthcare speech on Thursday. Is this finally going to be his long-awaited comprehensive healthcare policy? Because there are doubts that such a thing actually exists.
No.
It'll be an executive order. He'll call it an act. It'll be just nonsense. It'll be catastrophic plans. It'll be I'm lowering the cost of prescription. Oh, it's going to be about surprise billing. It's going to be about cost transparency. You know, because when you break your leg and go to the hospital or you have a heart attack, you're like, how much is a stent? Oh boy, you know what? I'm gonna just check with Mother of Mercy over on the other side of town. They're gonna save me a couple grand.
It certainly does exist. The president, in the next week or so.
It certainly does exist. When you're at the point where you have to say that your healthcare plan, no, it really does exist. It totally does. It totally
Will be laying out his vision for healthcare. Some of that has already been put out there, like telemedicine and lowering the cost of drugs. But the president and protecting pre-existing conditions. But the
telemedicine was not put out there. Yes, telemedicine was increased during COVID, but that's because of COVID, not because of some brilliant idea that Trump had. It doesn't really help anybody get insurance.
The president will be laying out some additional healthcare steps in the coming, I would say, 2 weeks. Yeah.
Oh,
yes,
2 weeks. Good.
I think so.
There it is.
Bailey.
2 weeks, so never. Could we have him appoint the justice in 2 weeks? A very short period of time, if you don't mind.
I have two questions. The first is, the president has said Roe v.
Yamich does have two questions.
Raid would be overturned if he got a chance to change the balance on the court. He said in 2016, quote, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that will happen. Is that the ultimate goal here, to overturn Roe v. Wade?
The president and the administration would not ask a judge to prejudge a case. And I would point you to the rule set by none other than Senator Joe Biden at the confirmation hearing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when he instructed no questions on how Ginsburg will decide any specific case that would come before her. And as Justice Ginsburg said in her confirmation, no hints, no forecasts, no previews. And Canon 5 of the Model Code of Judicial Conduct also reflects that a judge should refrain from giving specific viewpoints on cases, controversies, or issues.
I'm asking you whether or not the president's quote in 2016, whether he still stands by that he would like to see it overturned.
The president's philosophy as he's moving forward with this nomination process is he's looking at a judge that has certain qualities, and that is someone who looks at the Constitution and interprets it as written, interprets the plain meaning of statutes as written, and will be a textualist and an originalist.
Yeah, but what about, okay.
Question about the virus. Again, we've marked the fact that 200,000 Americans have died from the coronavirus. Could you again try to reconcile the president telling Bob Woodward that plenty of young people, quote his words, plenty of young people are affected by the coronavirus, with him saying last night in front of a crowd that virtually nobody young dies and gets affected by this virus? I'm wondering if you could just reconcile those two. Why did he tell Bob Woodward that plenty of young people are impacted by this virus, but not?
To put that into context, this is from the Bob Woodward's tape and last night. So I'll play this for you for those of you who just came into the room.
So he addresses that, and then you'll hear he admits that he's not sharing everything he knows.
Now it's turning out it's not just old people, Bob. Just today and yesterday, some startling facts came out. It's not just older
exactly.
young people, to plenty of young people.
So
I'm going to stop this because that's the entire quote. I'm going to play a different clip for you. Give me one moment to do that. Let's listen to the end of Yamich while I find that.
Not say that in front of a crowd.
Well, as you know, this was a novel pathogen. We now know a lot more about COVID today. And the president actually said that in a speech last night, right before the comments he made. He said, we now know a lot more about the virus, and we know that elderly people, particularly those with comorbidities, are affected by it. And we know that young people...
No, he said they're the only ones affected by it.
Are by and large, and in some states, there's been no young people that have succumbed to this disease.
He didn't say that. He said they were affected by it. We'll see in a second. I promise. My computer is now churning.
Listed off a few of the states for you. And we know that a very, very small percentage of those under 18 have actually perished because of COVID. And it was a novel pathogen. Now we know a lot more about it, who it affects, who our most vulnerable are, which is why we've surged testing to communities that are vulnerable, and will continue to make sure that our elderly, those with comorbidities, are protected.
Here it is right here.
So he addresses that.
No.
And then you'll hear
your mind because almost explainable.
Well, I think.
Sorry, guys. That's the same clip that I just played. But we all know that he said that I downplayed the virus. We all know that he said plenty of kids. And for whatever reason, the clip that I want of him last night is not coming up. But I can make that work. One moment, please. Oh, I know why. Here it is. It is here. This is the clip in context. My apologies. I was looking in the wrong section. It is actually posted on Twitter. Once again.
Now it's turning out it's not just old people, Bob. Just today and yesterday, some startling facts came out. It's not just older young people to plenty of young people.
So
in some states, thousands of people, nobody young, below the age of 18, like nobody. They have a strong immune system. Who knows? You take your hat off to the young because they have a hell of an immune system, but it affects virtually nobody. It's an amazing thing. By the way, open your schools. Everybody open your schools.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Again,
now it's turning out it's not just old people, Bob. Just today and yesterday, some startling facts came out. It's not just
Give me a second. Stop it. Shut up. There you go. Thank you. Virtually nobody gets it. 6% of the people who have it, according to the CDC, and die from it, have no comorbidities. So just healthy people. And they die. Many of them older, some of them younger. 29-year-old hockey coach, 29-year-old kids hockey coach just died in Texas. They had a hockey tournament, and the kids are skating and moving and all this. It's in Texas. There's no mandate to wear a mask while doing sports in Texas. 30 kids. More than 30 people caught it. The coach caught it too, and now he's dead. 29-year-old hockey coach. Plays hockey. Catches it and dies. But that's virtually no one, really.
Yes. And not continue to try to not have panic. He told Bob Woodward that he wanted to downplay it and play it down to not cause panic. You don't think he's doing that still?
The president has never downplayed critical health information. Dr.
Well, then what exactly was he downplaying?
Fauci, as I noted to you, said point blank, no, he didn't, and that's an assertion of the Vice President Pence.
Dr. Fauci did not say that. Dr. Fauci, and again, he's very diplomatic. He's very careful with what he said. I can play, but basically Dr. Fauci said, I didn't see him say that, but he may have said it.
Who led the task force made as well. Yes.
Thanks, Kayleigh. The administration has filed an appeal to the Supreme Court on apportionment, trying to make sure that people in the country illegally are not counted when congressional seats are handed out. Sorry, a little muffled. Texas is one of the states that would lose a seat if those people are not counted. The Constitution says that the people in a state are the number that are used for apportionment. Are people in the country illegally not people? And why does the president not want Texas to have more seats rather than fewer in the U.S. House?
Yeah, I haven't done a deep dive into that legal case. I can look into it and get back to you. Yes.
Can I ask a separate question?
Sure.
At the top of this, you mentioned that Democrats have talked about impeachment, and you also said that a president doesn't stop being president in the last year. Is there any, not that they're actually going through with impeachment at the moment, but is there anything to prevent an impeachment in the final months of a presidency?
Well, first, nope. To pursue impeachment based on someone executing their lawful duty, their constitutional.
No, there's plenty of other things to pursue. They can pursue impeachment on anything.
Duty is just preposterous.
They can pursue impeachment based on the fact that there's 200,000 dead Americans, a violation of the public trust. They could pursue impeachment based on what he said to Bob Woodward, that he was downplaying the virus because he didn't want to. That's impeachable. He's violating the public trust. Other presidents have not done that. Some of them may have, I'm sure. But in terms of, if you look at Pearl Harbor or anything else, no, that you tell the people the truth. That's the point.
And it told us a whole lot about what Democrats.
But here's the thing. If the Democrats were like, okay, we're going to impeach him, and Nancy delivers the articles of impeachment, the Senate has to take up those articles. All other business of the Senate is paused until those articles are taken up, but they could do that in 3-4 days. We've already found out. Remember, in the last impeachment, Trump was impeached, and it went to trial, and in the trial, the Senate decided no witnesses. John Bolton would have been there telling us about all the bad things that went in his book. He would have shown up if he was subpoenaed. He said that. Would it have made a difference? Hell no. Come on. This is the Republican Senate. Bunch of hypocrites. But, yes, they could delay things in the Senate until after the election. I don't think that plays well with the American people. I think that looks like just messing with politics. It's better to let the Republicans look like complete hypocrites. Mike Bloomberg, if you got all this money that you want to spend, go to the swing states and just show every single, or go to any state where there's a Republican seat in the Senate that's up for grabs right now, and just show that senator saying, oh, Joni Ernst, or actually Marco Rubio's not up for election. Is he? Could be. Anyway, I think he's up next 2 years from now. Somebody can fact check that on me for me. And show those ads. Show those senators saying exactly what we know that they said, and then what they say today.
Use impeachment for. It shows that they've always viewed impeachment, at least in the Nancy Pelosi era, as a partisan tool to take down a sitting president, to disempower the American people who voted to empower President Trump. They've used impeachment as
the American people did not vote for President Trump. The American people voted for Hillary. That's the constitutional. I'm kind of a constitutionalist. I'm an originalist. It's not the way this country works. The American people voted for Hillary. Trump gets to be the president because of the electors, 306 of them. So I'm supposed to give a shout out to O.T. Laurie.
The reduction of carbon emission in the U.S.
Of what? Sorry.
Carbon emission in the U.S.
Okay, I can't really hear you. Carbon emission. Okay.
Saying it was a good thing. Because it's connected with the reduction of use of coal, is it to say that decline of coal is a good thing?
I would just note that on greenhouse gas emissions, we have decreased them as the U.S. has become #1 in the oil and natural gas production, but we've simultaneously reduced greenhouse emissions. Yes.
Right, but is that a good thing that there's 5,300 fewer coal jobs now before the pandemic? How he was going to save coal and clean coal and all of this, there's now 5,300 fewer jobs in the coal industry than when Trump took office. That's just a fact. Is that a good thing? They're not going to say. They're not going to say. No. Is it good that coal has gone down? It's good because it reduces our carbon footprint. Yes, absolutely. Trump's not going to say that because he needs the coal still.
I also wanted to follow up on the speech the president prepared for the UN General Assembly. He hit China really hard, and the Chinese ambassador, introducing President Xi, responded, accusing the president.
We'll watch that next if you guys want to. If you want to watch the speech to the UN, we can do that after this. This has been going on for a while. I'm almost impressed.
Of bullying, protectionism, and unilateralism. I'm wondering what the White House response is to that, and then how concerned is this White House that this growing rift between the world's two largest economies is going to hurt the efforts to combat coronavirus?
Let me just say, nothing has hurt the efforts to combat the coronavirus more than China concealing information about COVID-19 from the very beginning. What China did was inexcusable. In partnership with the WHO, hid critical information.
Oh, see, she was going so well. Yes, what China did was inexcusable. Much of what the president says China did actually didn't happen. But for her then to say the WHO also, no, that's nonsense.
Information about transmission of COVID from us, about the
No, they didn't. You can go back. This whole thing comes about because the WHO tweeted there's no evidence of human-to-human transmission in one tweet, and then in several other tweets said, but in every other tweet with that question where they didn't have to reply and hashtag and all this other stuff, it's like, but further study is needed, and it's because they didn't have evidence. They did not. China might have had evidence. We think that China had evidence, but they lied to the WHO. The WHO is going, well, China hasn't given us any evidence, but we're out of, you know what, we'll make a thread. Essentially, they made a thread that day, and they answered question after question from interested parties saying, but with respiratory diseases, that's often the case. Further study is needed. And guess what? A couple of days later, there it was. Yeah, in fact, it is spreading person to person.
Severity of COVID, not just from us, but from the world.
By the way, this was before, it looks like we're death circling here. No, we're okay. We're dropping a few frames. We're going to keep plugging away here. All of this before Trump did anything, before the first case arrived here that we knew of at the time.
No bigger bully than China when it comes to COVID, and that's pretty clear. And just look at what happened at the WHO. Yes.
Just one quick follow-up with regard to the intelligence around the poisoning of the Russian opposition leader. The president said we'll talk about that another time. I'm just trying to get a sense of, has the president reviewed the German assessment? Is he rejecting that assessment that he was indeed poisoned?
No, the United States, as president of the G7 and joined by our G7 partners, has condemned in the strongest possible terms the confirmed poisoning. And Germany briefed the G7 on clinical and toxicological findings by medical experts, and a specialized German armed forces laboratory determined that Mr. Navalny was the victim of an attack with a chemical nerve agent, a substance developed by Russia, and any use of chemical weapons anywhere, anytime, by anyone, under any circumstance is unacceptable. Chanel.
What would the U.S. response be?
Here we go.
Again, I've told you so.
Here's OAN.
So far that the United States has condemned it along with G7, and rest assured there's been no one tougher on Russia than this country. You've seen what we've done with sanctions and expelling diplomats, among other actions. Yes, Chanel.
Haley, expanding on the last couple of questions about the UN speech, the president does hit China pretty hard, specifically on China's slave labor practices and ethnic cleansing. But then, interestingly, he dives into their environmental record. China dumps millions and millions of tons of plastic and trash into the oceans, overfishes other countries' waters, destroys vast swaths of coral reefs, and emits more toxic mercury into the atmosphere than any country anywhere in the world. How responsive have the United States' allies been to this message from the president and on
which he just said like 3 hours ago,
confronting China on these fronts in particular?
Yeah, I'd say the world is unified in condemning some of the human rights violations by China, and also,
except in the Bob Woodward book, not the Bob Woodward book, in the Michael book. I'm all done, kids. Good night. The John Bolton book, where Trump found out about the Uyghurs being in concentration camps in one province in China, and his response was, well, that's good.
I would note, just on the issue of CO2 emissions, there's no bigger emitter than China itself. Charlotte?
Thank you, Kaylee. A Heritage Foundation report has discovered a financial link between an organization linked to Black Lives Matter and a pro-China.
Okay, wait, who is she?
Of CO2 emissions, there's no bigger emitter than China itself. Charlotte?
Thank you, Kaylee. A Heritage Foundation report has discovered a financial...
A Heritage Foundation, so they are a right-wing group. We'll call them a think tank.
Link between an organization linked to Black Lives Matter and a pro-Chinese regime group. Is that something that the White House would investigate, and is that something you're concerned about?
So I haven't seen that particular reporting, but just on the note of some of the violence that we've been seeing, I would just point out this New York Times article that came out. Terrence Moses was watching protesters against police brutality march down.
Could you show us the article, or are you just going to hold it up at a slant? Can you give us the title of the argument?
Down his quiet residential street one recent evening when some in the group of a few hundred suddenly stopped and started yelling. Mr. Moses was initially not sure what the protesters were upset about, but as he got closer, he saw it. It was his neighbor who had an American flag on display. It went from a peaceful march calling out the names to all of a sudden, bang, how dare you fly the American flag, said Mr. Moses, who is black and runs a nonprofit group in the Portland, Oregon area. They said, take it down. They wouldn't leave. They said they're going to come back and burn down the house. Mr. Moses and others blocked the demonstrators and told them to leave. Mr. Moses said, we don't go around terrorizing folks to try and force them to do something they don't want to do, who runs a nonprofit group that provides support for local homelessness people. He said, I'm a veteran. I'm for these liberties. It is shameful, the violence we've seen in our cities that is now spilling into suburbs across the country, and good work and good reporting by the New York Times on that. Now I'd like to invite Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg to the podium to discuss a disgruntled former detailee. General Kellogg is a 3-star general, a veteran of the Vietnam War and Operation Desert Storm. General Kellogg has been supporting President Trump from the beginning and has been by the president's side for major foreign policy decisions. General Kellogg, please.
Thanks. So they're going to discuss a former employee who is disgruntled, obviously someone who's told us the truth about the president, we can assume. This would be a violation of labor laws in most states.
Kaylee, good afternoon. I'm Keith Kellogg. Olivia Troy worked for me. I fired her. The reason I fired her was her performance.
He cannot, again, in most states, you cannot tell the reason that you fired someone.
It has started to drop after 6 months working on the task force as a backbencher. She was responsible for coordinating meetings, bringing people together.
She's the one who said, Trump, the virus is a good thing because I don't have to shake hands anymore with these disgusting people. That's what she says Trump said.
And when the performance level dropped off, I went to the Vice President of the United States and recommended she leave. I'm the one that escorted her off the compound. What she has said, I have never heard. That's never happened. And I've been through every single meeting of the task force, been with the president and the vice president through every meeting. What bothers me about what Olivia said.
This is General Kellogg, and he is talking about Olivia Troy, an aide to Vice President Mike Pence. And as he now speaks at the White House press briefing, we're going to pull back because news has been made, as you know, from watching Kayleigh McEnany speak. We'll keep our eye on this briefing and monitor it, of course, as we always do. Our own Chris Wallace, as you know, will be moderating the first presidential debate next Tuesday. He has just released the topics. They include Trump and Biden's records, the Supreme Court, COVID-19, the economy, race and violence in our cities, and the integrity of the election.
Okay, so Trump and Biden records, that's standard. Supreme Court, of course. COVID-19, that's what everybody. The economy, that's always the case. Race and violence in our cities, that is a Trump topic. And the integrity of our election, Trump topic. So advantage Trump. But only because the last two, but Biden can really capitalize on this, on the race and violence in our cities. The integrity of our election, I really hope that the DNC is prepping Biden with all the states and all the states who universally vote, which is about 9 last time I looked, and that he knows that there's a barcode on the inside. There's a barcode on the security envelope. You have to, every state has signature verification. That's complete nonsense. So just really start hammering. And Biden should be saying, don't believe me, folks. Fact check this yourself. And all of these topics should be listed on a website with references to actual fact-checking organizations and or the evidence itself. This should all be prepped. Let's see. Can we go look at Kellogg? Give me a second here. We got President Trump's address, but let's see if we can catch at the end of that presser. I don't know how much else Kellogg states there. Before we do that, this is what they're talking about. Let's pull her over. Really? Here it is. We can watch this if we pull it over, and I'm going to disappear for a second and be back.
I'm Olivia Troy. I was Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor to Vice President Pence and served as Vice President Pence's lead staff member on the COVID-19 response. You know, I've been on the COVID task force from day one. I mean, the virus was very unpredictable at the beginning. There were a lot of unknowns, but towards the middle of February, we knew it wasn't a matter of if COVID would become a big pandemic here in the United States, it was a matter of when. But the president didn't want to hear that because his biggest concern was that we were in an election year and how is this going to affect what he considered to be his record of success. It was shocking to see the president saying that the virus was a hoax, saying that everything's okay when we know that it's not. The truth is, he doesn't actually care about anyone else but himself. He made a statement once that was very striking. I never forgot it because it pretty much defined who he was. When we were in a task force meeting, the president said, maybe this COVID thing is a good thing. I don't like shaking hands with people. I don't have to shake hands with these disgusting people. Those disgusting people are the same people that he claims to care about. These are the people still going to his rallies today who have complete faith in who he is. If the president had taken this virus seriously, or if he had actually made an effort to tell how serious it was, he would have slowed the virus spread. He would have saved lives. It was the opportunity and honor of a lifetime to be able to serve in the White House. I put my heart and soul into this role every single day. But at some point, I would come home at night, I would look myself in the mirror and say, are you really making a difference? Does it matter? Because no matter how hard you work and what you do, the president is going to do something that is detrimental to keeping Americans safe, which is why you signed up for this role. It was awful. It was terrifying. I have been a Republican for my entire life. I am a McCain Republican, I am a Bush Republican, and I am voting for Joe Biden because I truly believe we are at a time of constitutional crisis. At this point, it's country over party.
Okay, so that's what Kellogg is responding to here. She said that the president said that he doesn't like to shake the hands, which he doesn't. We know that this is no open secret here, but that he didn't have to shake the hands of the disgusting people. Do you guys believe her? That's a question for you guys. Let's listen to the general, and then you decide whom you believe. Let's go find that. It'll be right here. Oh, come back. Nope, that's Senator Romney. And let's see if we can find
on that. Now I'd like to invite Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg to the podium
to
that's
discuss exactly what we
a
want.
disgruntled former.
I'm Keith Kellogg. Olivia Troy worked for me. I fired her. The reason I fired her was her performance had started to drop after 6 months working on the task force as a backbencher. She was responsible for coordinating meetings, bringing people together, and when the performance level dropped off, I went to the Vice President of the United States and recommended she leave. I'm the one that escorted her off the compound. What she has said, I have never heard. That's never happened. And I've been through every single meeting of the task force, been with the president and the vice president through every meeting. What bothers me about what Olivia said is by insinuation, the disparagement of the task force, the vice president, and the president of the United States. When you look at what the task force has done, we are now facing the worst pandemic we have seen in over 100 years, and we're fighting through it. We are this close to a vaccine that will work.
It's not a thing. That's not an actual metric of anything. We're this close. We are this close. We're this. Oh, that's better. Look at that. We used to be, and now we're. Thank God. China's like this, and a lot, and then this close.
We are finally fighting through it, and we're developing some opportunities to make sure the American people are protected to a vaccine that will work. We are finally fighting through it.
We are finally fighting through it, because we haven't been fighting through it this whole time. That is a Freudian slip, Mr. Kellogg. Snap, crackle, and pop, asshole. I'm kidding. He's not an asshole. He's a general. But yeah, that is a mistake.
And we're developing some opportunities.
And he realized what he just said.
To make sure the American people are protected as we go forward. That when we've had the doctors that are out there, when the comments she has made, when you looked at the Dr. Fauci's, Dr. Birx, and Redfield, Stephen Hahn, Dr. Giroir, all of these doctors have worked exceptionally hard for the American people. The president has made some critical decisions all the way along the line. Tough decisions. He made a decision on the China travel ban when we had less than a dozen known cases here in the United States.
Yeah, because it was recommended to him by the task force. You should know that, General. You're starting to be an asshole. No, he's not an asshole until he proves he's an asshole. So far, so good.
He was the one who set up the air bridge, working with commercial companies, so we would develop and bring in PPE in 27 hours instead of 27 days. He's the one who went to companies like 3M so we could more rapidly manufacture the N95 mask going forward.
You know, his job. By the way, he did all of that really late.
He's the one who drove all of those efforts. And I heard the comments made about the people.
Washington State doesn't send out text messages, but you can check your ballots online. California does send out text messages every step along the way. Washington State may do that now at random. Check into it because it's brand new to California as well.
We have lost. Do not think for a minute that that has not bothered us. It does. Because we know on the task force, several of those people, scores of those people, died without relatives because they couldn't get in because of COVID. We know that. Scores of them died on ventilators.
Scores? Scores? I'm sorry, but scores is 20. 20, 40, 60, 80. Yeah, so like 30,000 scores.
When they're under sedation, because they didn't have an opportunity to see their loved ones. That bothers us every single day. Don't think it doesn't. And it bothers the president. And
Talk about downplaying, though, General. Jesus Christ, scores?
the president's been very confident that we're going to get to a solution. You want a president. You want a leader that displays confidence that we have something going forward, that we're going to win and beat this virus. And that's what he's done all the way along the line. I'm very proud of the President of the United States. I'm very proud of the Vice President of the United States. I'm
okay, this guy's an asshole then.
very proud of the task force and the work it's done. I am not
so
proud
remember that,
Olivia.
remember as we kind of almost started to flatten the curve in the middle of the summer, and then the Pence article, the opinion piece came out in the Wall Street Journal saying what a fabulous job the Trump administration has done. Remember that? The lady that we just saw that said that Trump said he didn't want to shake the disgusting hands, that lady helped write that piece with Penn. It was essentially her piece. That was her job. So yeah, for him to say he's proud of Pence for saying that we've done an amazing job. Remember what happened after that? Woo! There go the cases. There go the deaths. And now we're at 200,000. So yeah, should you regret that? Yes. Should you be proud of Pence for saying that? No. No, you should not.
Troy.
So General Kellogg, should the president be having these big rallies?
Thank you, Lieutenant.
There you go. Great question for Jim Acosta. Should the president be having these big rallies? It's a good question. Green Room gives you a ring.
General, we appreciate you doing this. What we have here with this former disgruntled detailee and with Miles Taylor as well, these are not profiles in courage, but these are profiles in cowardice. Less than 2 months ago, now disgruntled former detailee Olivia Troy proudly declared that she was serving in the Trump administration and it had been, quote, the honor of her life.
She just declared that in the video as well. She served in the White House. She served her country. That is the honor of her life.
Troy said, quote, I have witnessed firsthand how dedicated and committed all of you have been to doing the right thing. She wrote that just about a month and a half ago. Troy failed to
I don't know which letter she's talking about, so I can't fact check that.
Speak up, and she struggled to keep up because she was constantly complaining about how exhausted and overwhelmed she was coordinating conference calls and scheduling meetings. Troy's detail was cut short, and now she's cutting commercials for a fringe club of, quote, never Trumpers who are desperate for relevancy. And the price of admission to this club is fabricated smears and flat-out lies against President Trump. Troy joins the similarly irrelevant Miles Taylor, CNN's latest contributor. Taylor proudly posed for a photo with the president, smiling ear to ear.
When was that?
Taylor wrote that, quote, it was the honor of his lifetime to serve as DHS Chief of Staff. But Miles couldn't go the distance. Those who knew Miles during his short time in the administration knew he could not get results. After he left, DHS actually got the results in securing the border, building the border wall, and more. Desperate to please his new Silicon Valley friends, Miles made up lies against President Trump to fit in. He can now rest easy at Google, having earned his anti-Trump credentials and the approval of his big tech peers. Neither of these individuals.
Good on him. You go, Taylor.
Knew the president, but they are certainly trying to profit off of their time here in the White House. Flat out lies. And thank you, General Kellogg.
Doesn't matter whether they knew the president or not. She was present at all of the task force meetings, every one of them, until her firing. And the president would occasionally drop by, see what was going on with COVID.
For setting the record straight. Thank you.
Can we ask some follow-up questions, Kaylee, as long as we have someone from the task force here?
Yeah. So at random says that she mentioned that how great a job everybody was doing in either a video or an interview. She was outwardly supporting the administration out of duty and was sickened by it, partially why she quit. Yeah, I think she was on Rachel or something at some point, saying how she couldn't be two-faced like that. So that's the end of that. Does anybody want to see the president's address to the UN? We'll do that if we want to. You guys are on about a 15-second delay, so I'll give a few seconds for you guys to come up with your answers. Do you guys want to watch the president address? We can do that. And then we also have, what do we have? We have the interview for Monday. We have the White House remarks from yesterday, the helicopter moments. Yes? Okay, let's watch the attack on China. Looks like I've watched 2 minutes of this. It's 7 minutes long. I'm going to let you guys watch the first 2 minutes by yourself.
The United Nations General Assembly, 75 years after the end of World War II and the founding of the United Nations, we are once again engaged in a great global struggle. We have waged a fierce battle against the invisible enemy, the China virus, which has claimed countless lives in 188 countries. In the United States, we launched the most aggressive mobilization since the Second World War. We rapidly produced a record supply of ventilators, creating a surplus that allowed us to share them with friends and partners all around the globe. We pioneered life-saving treatments, reducing our fatality rate 85% since April. Thanks to our efforts, 3 vaccines are in the final stage of clinical trials. We are mass producing them in advance so they can be delivered immediately upon arrival. We will distribute a vaccine. We will.
By the way, he's using a teleprompter. Just saying.
Defeat the virus. We will end the pandemic, and we will enter a new era of unprecedented prosperity, cooperation, and peace. As we pursue this bright future, we must hold accountable the nation which unleashed this plague onto the world, China. In the earliest days of the virus, China locked down travel domestically while allowing flights to leave China and infect the world. China condemned my travel ban on their country, even as they canceled domestic flights and locked citizens in their homes. The Chinese government and the World Health Organization, which is virtually controlled by China, falsely declared that there was no evidence of human-to-human transmission. Later, they falsely said people without symptoms would not spread the disease. The United Nations must hold China accountable for their actions. In addition, every year, China dumps millions and millions of tons of plastic and trash into the oceans, overfishes other countries' waters, destroys vast swaths of coral reef, and emits more toxic mercury into the atmosphere than any country anywhere in the world. China's carbon emissions are nearly twice what the U.S. has, and it's rising fast. By contrast, after I withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord, last year America reduced its carbon emissions by more than any country in the agreement. Those who attack America's exceptional environmental record while ignoring China's rampant pollution are not interested in the environment. They only want to punish America, and I will not stand for it. If the United Nations is to be an effective organization, it must focus on the real problems of the world. This includes terrorism, the oppression of women, forced labor, drug trafficking, human and sex trafficking, religious persecution, and the ethnic cleansing of religious minorities. America will always be a leader in human rights. My administration is advancing.
Was I muted for that? Did you guys hear me explain why the whole travel thing in China was not true? But let me know if you didn't hear that. I'll explain it.
religious.
I apologize for that, guys. Again, my mic covers up the thing that tells me that my mic is off. It's not a great setup. I know.
Liberty, opportunity for women, the decriminalization of homosexuality.
Okay. Yeah, we shouldn't criminalize homosexuality. He's right. Here in the United States, where he's president, we don't. But again, we don't. As long as we don't allow those trans people to serve in the military, that's the important part. Yeah, don't criminalize it, but do not let trans people serve in the military. Human rights violations. So here's the deal. In January 23rd, nobody left Wuhan for anywhere. China locked that shit down. So for him to say they allowed flights to leave China, yeah, flights were leaving China, but they weren't leaving Wuhan. They weren't going to other places in China. Here's what happened. Some right-wing nut found out that you looked at the flight patterns, because you can go back to any date in history and see where planes are flying. That's just what how aviation happens. So you can trace that. He was like, oh, look, planes aren't flying to China. Look, they're not leaving Wuhan to fly to China. Yeah, because Wuhan was locked down. And guess what? At the same time, he didn't bother to look. They weren't flying out of Wuhan anywhere else either. Not just China. So the Chinese stopped all the travel at the same time. This whole, they allowed it to leave. No, it was already here. That was the 23rd. 21st, it arrived here. Possibly sooner, we think now, because they found evidence that it has. But that being said, we weren't looking for it. We weren't testing for it because Obama didn't leave us a test for COVID-19. So that's on him.
Combating human trafficking and protecting unborn children. We also know that American prosperity is the bedrock of freedom and security all over the world.
So he wants the UN to ban abortion, is what he's saying.
In 3 short years, we built the greatest economy in history, and we are
We did not. That's not true.
Quickly doing it again. Our military has increased substantially in size.
Why are you telling the United Nations this? How is this important to the United Nations that we have a big military? Our military has actually shrunk in size. Our military was 12% bigger under Obama in 2010 than it is now. We have fewer soldiers in the military today.
We spent $2.5 trillion over the last 4 years on our military. We have the most powerful military anywhere in the world, and it's not even close.
Yep.
We stood up.
We have since World War II.
To decades of China's trade abuses. We revitalized the NATO alliance, where other countries are now paying a much more fair share. We forged historic.
That's not. He's taking responsibility for that, but basically it's the economy that has revitalized that. Better economies, 2% becomes a much higher number.
Partnerships with Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador to stop human smuggling. We are standing with the people of Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela in their righteous struggle for freedom. We withdrew.
It's hard for him to do these routines in the UN without all the audience for the laughter.
From the terrible Iran nuclear deal and imposed crippling sanctions on the world's leading state sponsor of terror. We obliterated the ISIS caliphate 100%.
The Kurds did, so that's a United Nations thing. That's good. He's giving Kurds the credits.
Killed its founder and leader, al-Baghdadi, and eliminated the world's top terrorist, Qasem.
No. Fact check that right there. We know for a fact, because he said it so many times in 2016, Hillary Clinton and Obama were the co-founders of ISIS. Not this al-Baghdadi. He's just left holding the Baghdadi. It's funny because it's terrorism. Pause for laughter.
Soleimani. This month we achieved a peace deal between Serbia and Kosovo. We reached a landmark breakthrough with 2 peace deals in the Middle East after decades of no progress. Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain all signed a historic peace agreement in the White House, with many other Middle Eastern countries to come. They are coming fast, and they know it's great for them, and it's great for the world.
That's what Stormy tells you, but for her, it's not. These
groundbreaking peace deals are the dawn of the new Middle East. By taking a different approach, we have achieved different outcomes, far superior outcomes. We took an approach.
We don't have any outcomes yet. It just happened. I hope he's right. I hope we have superior outcomes.
And the approach worked. We intend to deliver more peace agreements.
This is so edited. Every time you cut back and forth, you can tell it's been edited. So this is multiple takes for the president. Again, reading off a teleprompter.
Shortly, and I have never been more optimistic for the future of the region. There is no blood in the sand. Those days are hopefully over. As we speak, the United States is...
Why is he yelling at the UN Assembly?
Also working to end the war in Afghanistan, and we are bringing our troops home. America is fulfilling our destiny as peacemaker, but it is peace through strength. We are stronger now than ever before. Our weapons are at an advanced level like we've never had before, like, frankly, we've never even thought of having before.
No, it's been thought of. I mean, just say they're more advanced now than ever, which makes sense because every generation of weapons is more advanced than the last generation of... Yes! Yes, that is true. Of course it is. You don't have to say that...
And I only pray to God that we never have to use them. For decades, the same tired voices proposed the same failed solutions.
Oh, now we got to attack the past. Yeah, okay.
Doing global ambitions at the expense of their own people. But only when you take care of your own citizens will you find a true basis for cooperation. As president, I have rejected the failed approaches of the past, and I am proudly putting America first, just as you should be putting your countries first. That's okay. That's what
everybody does. Although a lot of countries put themselves first, and I mean, let's be fair, so does Trump.
What you should be doing. I am supremely confident that next year, when we gather in person, we will be in the midst of one of the greatest years in our history, and frankly, hopefully, in the history of the world. Thank you. God bless you all. God bless America, and God bless the United Nations.
All right. Let's watch this. This is Yellowcopter moments from yesterday.
So we're going to Ohio. Things seem to be very good. We have been doing very well with the China virus, but they've had...
It's really hard to check things being very good. So non-specific about everything. Not only does Trump keep the fact checkers busy, he also keeps them confused. There's so many, it's David, if you're still watching, David with Snopes, there's so many that end up being mixture, half true, which is a measurement, 50%. Because you take, for example, did he call the virus a hoax? No, that's not what he meant. Did he call the virus a hoax? Yes, the way English works with antecedents, he did call the virus a hoax, but he also didn't call the virus a hoax. So then you have to use subjective judgment on that. And that's not the way fact-checking is supposed to work. But if you look at just about all the fact-checking sites, he didn't call the virus a hoax. What happened was that he's calling the Democrats saying that Trump was underreacting or that Trump was downplaying the virus at the time. He's calling that a hoax, as it turns out that he was telling Bob Woodward at the same time that it was a hoax. So not a hoax, but if you use English the way that English works, he did call the virus a hoax. But he has so much verbal kitty litter in between referring to the virus and the virus calling it a hoax. It is a hoax. The it has to be the last antecedent, and that... So yes, both can be true. But here's the bottom line. Whether or not he intended to call it a hoax, because of his extremely poor Englishing, most of his supporters think it's a hoax. Maybe not most. I don't know. But we've all seen his supporters who refuse to wear a mask, who refuse to social distance because it's a hoax. And where do they get that from? They get that from him because he's so bad at Englishment. Just about spilled. No worries. I have some paper towels.
Pretty big spike in...
Yes, it's their new hoax. It goes back to the... That's how pronouns work. You got to use the antecedent the virus. That's, yes, you're absolutely right, Kim, and I've said before, and I will say it again, he did say it. It's not what he meant, but he did say it, and that's what many of his supporters heard, and he hasn't bothered to clear it up.
Europe is...
He's not said the virus is not a hoax. He's never said that.
You know, in UK in particular, and I'm sure they'll have that under control, hopefully soon. But we're in very good shape. The vaccines are coming along. I just got a report.
200,000 dead the next day.
The vaccines are coming along rapidly. Therapeutics are coming along very well, and we'll see what happens. But too bad about Europe. Too bad.
Mr. President,
some areas of Europe are experiencing spikes, nowhere near what we are, except France. England, by the way, is going to lock down again. Israel just locked down again, a hard lockdown. Boris Yeltsin just said, Boris Yeltsin, sounds wrong, that they are at a pivotal point and they're going to have to clamp down on things again. France is clamping down on things. Why? France just had, I can pull up the numbers for you, but it's the numbers over there are insane. Here's the bottom line. If you open it, the numbers will spike. If you open the schools, the numbers will spike. If you open the universities, the numbers will spike. The virus doesn't care how you feel about it. It just doesn't. Let me find France here. France, we are looking at, it's way down the list of countries, by the way. France, I see France. Come on, show me. France, yesterday, 5,298 new cases. And for a country the size of France, that is bad. 53 new deaths in France yesterday. Very bad. Notre Dame, the football team, has 7 players infected now. There'll be more. There'll be a lot more. Dublin locked down. Thank you, Green Room, for letting us know that.
I would say on Friday or Saturday I'll be announcing the pick. It's 5 women are being...
It's Saturday now, by the way.
Looked at and vetted very carefully. 5. And we'll make a decision probably Saturday, but Friday or Saturday.
Do you plan to meet with any of them in person? Do you plan to meet with any of them in person before you make your decision?
Yeah. I like how he's always telling the reporters to be louder. Well, he's standing in front of a fucking helicopter.
I will.
When do you plan to do that?
During this period of time.
Do you think all 5?
This period of time.
I don't know. I doubt it.
But in person?
I doubt it. But we'll meet with a few, probably.
So all 5, I doubt it, but we'll meet with a few. That's 3 or 4. Just, okay.
Talked to any of them yet?
What do you guys think? Is it going to be Amy or is it going to be the Latina? Those are your options right now. He's got to win Florida. He's hurting in Texas. He is vulnerable in Texas. We can believe that. But again, anything can change. And there's still the October surprise. You're going to get the Durham report that's he's going to use that as, oh, look, there was a spying in Obama and Biden and all that sort of thing. You think it's going to be Amy? I would go with the Latina. And forgive me for not knowing her name. I know her name, but I don't have it in me right now. When I'm doing, like if I'm driving through traffic or I'm managing multiple screens plus the mic and all that sort of stuff, the part of my brain that finds words, that part of the brain is occupied moving things around. So somebody find me, so there's 2 leading candidates. They were talking about them on Fox and Friends this morning. I'll show you a little clip from Fox and Friends, which I find unfucking believable, but come on. Somebody come up with her name.
Have you talked to any of them yet?
I have.
Today?
I have. Today and yesterday, day before.
Is it better to have a vote on your nominee before the election or after?
Well, I'd much rather have a vote before the election because there's a lot of work to be done, and I'd much rather have it. We have plenty of time to do it. I mean, there's really a lot of time. So let's say I make the announcement on Saturday. There's a great deal of time before the election. That'll be up to Mitch in the Senate. But I'd certainly much rather have the vote. I think it sends a good signal. And it's solidarity and lots of other things. And I'm just doing my constitutional obligation. I have an obligation to do this. So I would rather see it before the election.
What would be...
Some senators that Republican senators who may be a little reluctant?
Well, we'll have to say. I would think that would be very bad for them. I think their voters, the people that voted them, put them there because of a certain ideology. Or
Barbara Lagoa is the other one. Amy Coney Barrett and Barbara Lagoa is the Latina that I couldn't think of.
A certain feel, and they don't want to.
And she's not only Latina, she's a Cuban American. And you can win Florida based on the Cuban vote if it shows up. Typically, Hispanics show up at 50% for whatever reason. I'm not in charge of that. I'm just saying those are the numbers. But Cuban Americans show up at a slightly higher rate than that in Florida if you can get them to show up. So I'm gonna go with Judge Lagoa. I think that's what's going to shake down to, because there's no telling with Trump. You can't predict what he's going to do, because what he's going to do is not based on any reason. It's based on his gut, and who knows what his gut is going to tell him. He will pick the one who praises him most. That's the bottom line. The one who pledges loyalty to him in so many words, that's going to be whom he chooses.
Somebody do that. I think it's very bad if they do that.
What would be your concern if it happened after the election, sir?
The last words, supposedly the last wishes of Justice Ginsburg were made up, because it supposedly came from her granddaughter.
Yeah, it just sounds to me like it would be somebody else. I don't believe. It could be, and it might not be too.
Sir, what would be
it was just too convenient.
Yeah, so yesterday he said that the death wish of Ruth Bader Ginsburg was made up by Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, or Chuck Schumer. That was just because it's too convenient. It's too convenient. You know, a death wish, a dying wish.
What would be your concern if the vote happened after Election Day?
No concern. I just think it would be better. They asked, would I rather have it? I'd rather have it before the election. I think it would be better for our country. And we'll pick somebody that's outstanding, very qualified. They're all qualified, but somebody that is outstanding, and I'd rather see it all take place before the election, so before November 3rd.
Are you concerned if you lost the election?
Also yesterday, this question.
It would be harder to get the person confirmed.
No, I don't think so. No, I think we're going to win. If you look at the polls, the real polls, we're doing very well. We're going to Ohio tonight.
So the follow-up question there should be, well, if you're confident of winning, why choose now and risk dividing the country?
We're packed. We're packed everywhere, so we've never had spirit like we have now.
So his justification is because we're packed at the rallies, which he calls peaceful protest, friendly protests, which is not a thing. You don't have friendly protests. But the rallies are packed. During a pandemic, people pack into his friendly protests. That's the reasoning. That's the reason.
4 years ago, the spirit now is greater even than it was 4 years ago.
What will be your message tomorrow to the UN? And did you just tape it?
I did. I just did it. My message is a strong message on China, and basically, you'll see it. You'll see it tomorrow. But I just did it a little while ago.
Are you leaning toward one candidate over another? Are you leaning toward?
I have one or two that I think they're all outstanding, but I have one or two that I have in mind. Yeah.
And who do you think poisoned Alexei Navalny?
Say it.
Who do you think poisoned Alexei Navalny in Russia?
We'll talk about that at another time.
Yeah, he does not want to say that Putin ordered the poisoning of Navalny in Russia. He just won't. He will not. He refuses to say anything bad about Putin, even though the international community and Germany, they're a partner of ours, by the way. They're not just like, oh, we trust Germany. They're part of the Five Eyes, the group of 5 countries who cooperate with intelligence data. Our spies are Britain's spies. Our spies are German spies, etc., etc. Although also we sometimes spy on Germany. Let's just not talk about that part. But the question was, who do you think poisoned him? Pretty simple question. Well, it was Russia. Nope.
Say it.
Who do you think poisoned Alexei Navalny in Russia?
We'll talk about that at another time.
Is Amy Coney Barrett one of the leading contenders in your mind?
She's one of the people that's very respected, but they're all respected. She's certainly one of the candidates, yes.
And when you go down to Miami, will you meet with Barbara Lagoa?
I may. She's highly thought of, and she's got a lot of support. You know, a lot of people. I'm getting a lot of phone calls from a lot of people. She has a lot of support. I don't know her, but I hear she's outstanding.
And sir,
she's one of the people we're looking at.
Did you push the DOJ to name Seattle and New York and Portland anarchistic cities?
Well, I think they are, but that's up to DOJ. That will be up to the Attorney General. But certainly they are. If you look at Portland, you look at what's going on there. What a mess. Go ahead. And we could straighten it out. All Democrats, all radical left, we could straighten it out so fast. Go ahead.
Yeah, depending on what Lagoa says to him. So this conversation with Lagoa, if she pleases him, if she pledges loyalty to him, she's the Supreme Court. If she does not, then it'll be Amy, because he's been talking about Amy for years. And again, the more he hears about somebody, the more he thinks, oh, they're respected because I hear about them.
That's working its way.
And we know that because I've heard good things, more and more. Franklin Douglas, for example. But also, when he dismisses somebody, the first thing he does, I've never heard of him. Some guy I've never heard of.
Way through, I've given...
Notoriety translates to respect for Trump.
A preliminary okay. They will work at two great companies, Oracle and Walmart. Larry Ellison's a great genius at that kind of thing. The technology is incredible. And so if we can save it, we'll save it. And if we can't, we'll cut it off. But they have preliminary, we'll see what they can do. We have to have total security. That's the only thing, very important. We have to have total security. I'll see you in Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys. So
Please.
2 questions. You be quiet. Nobody cares. Do we think that Trump said in a meeting, in a task force meeting, that he thought COVID was a good thing because he didn't want to shake hands with the disgusting people? So that's one question. The second question is, will it be Amy Coney Barrett or is it going to be Barbara Lagoa? So are you going to go with the one that Trump knows more about and has already had a conversation with whom he's already... Anyway. Or is he going to go with the Latina, the Cuban American in Miami? What's he going to do? Yes? Yeah, but guys, you got to give me more than just yes, because I just asked 2 questions. Barrett, Lagoa, it might be Lagoa. I think it's Lagoa. Cuban. Should be. I don't know. I only speak Englishing, and I'm not well at that. Dahmer was going to be an excellent cook. Yeah, Dahmer certainly had some recipes. Swallow me for more recipes. Okay, Lagoa. Okay, I am leaning towards if Lagoa says the right things and praises him, it's Lagoa. Even if she doesn't pledge loyalty, because if he doesn't know her, I don't know if he's going to broach that in terms of loyalty. But if she praises him, then yeah, she's in. He should pick the Latina because he may be too racist. Yeah, it is racist to pick the Latina over Amy Coney Barrett just because she's Latina. But it's better for Trump if he does. So the motivation will not be racism. The motivation will be self-interest. So you can have both. ABC, and yes, he said, I don't like shaking hands. Oh, Amy Coney Barrett is what you're saying. There's my dyslexia striking again. And he cares about... Yeah, I think it's the Hispanic judge. I almost just looked at that. I think he's going to choose the Hispanic. That's Kevin Leunkel. That's my imitation of Kevin Leunkel. That's what because, he's set in his ways. He'll go with whomever is more likely to mess with Roe. Yeah, I don't know, because honestly, Trump really doesn't care about abortion. He never has. In the Playboy, he said before that he's pro-choice, very strongly. He said now, of course, that he's anti-choice. In 1991, when Playboy asked him about it in the big Playboy interview he did, he really had no opinion one way or the other. He says, I haven't really given it much thought. You don't not give it much thought when you're 40 years old and not have an opinion one way or the other. That's just not the way it works. He doesn't care about abortion. He does care about praise. He cares about one thing, Trump. That's it. That's it. And so we know what he's going to do based on that, but we don't know what factors are going to come into play that affect Trump. So we can't make an accurate prediction. I'm going with that. I don't. And this goes back to her saying that Trump called it a hoax, because Trump didn't call it a hoax. But he did, semantically. But he didn't. I don't know. We will never know, although at some point another member of the task force may come out and say, like, yeah, he said that. But we're not going to know before the election. My gut is that she didn't say that. With the executive branch before, this executive branch, they wouldn't. The White House usher would not send me the receipts for the hamburgers. Remember that when he had the college football teams in and he gave them the McDonald's and the Burger King and the Wendy's? Actually, you can check me on that. I mean, no, you shouldn't be getting death circles. Throughput's fine here. Guys, come on. Okay, it's a YouTube thing then. Oh, wait. Maybe it is on this end. It is on this end, guys. So it's going to be circling. You're going to be delayed. Yeah, I guess that's it for the broadcast. The internet gods are not happy with us right now, so we'll cut right to the closing credits.